Oh, like we are there. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay. So Phil, how are things tonight in Edinburgh?
Well, I'm nowhere near Edinburgh, but it's all good, thank you.
let's restart that. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in an area of England known as East Anglia, which is probably 250 miles south of Edinburgh.
Well, pardon my presumptuousness.
I'm in England.
Okay, I'm going to start over, and I'm just going to say what I did, but I'll say England instead of Scotland.
You should have kept it in.
That would have been good. I'll get my country straight now. All right. Hey, Phil, it's nice to talk to you tonight from England.
Nice to talk to you, Derek. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. Earlier, we talked just a few minutes ago, and I made the mistake of presuming Phil was in Edinburgh, but he schooled me very quickly.
Yes, being associated with the Bay City Rollers nowadays doesn't automatically assume Scottishness.
That's right, and that's what I did too, man. You called me out. So you've been with the guys for so long in so many different incarnations, beginning with Eric Faulkner, I believe, back in the day, right?
Yeah, I did 3 years with Eric Faulkner's Bay City Rollers from 2008 to 2011. At which point I was offered the job with Les McKeowns band, and I switched.
Right. Did you have good experiences with Eric's band?
Yeah, it was good. We most of the work that we did was over in Germany. They did do a lot of what they call oldie nights, which would feature 4 or 5 bands from the 70s era. But ultimately, it just wasn't working often enough to sustain a living. So when I was asked to join Les's band, and Les had far more work, I just had to make that decision and go with it.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you still in touch with Eric today?
I haven't spoken to Eric for about 9 or 10 years.
Wow.
But I believe he's been quite sick, and I hope he's mending. But he was suffering from encephalitis.
Yeah.
Which has quite a long recovery period.
Yeah, poor guy. I really do wish him the best and send many blessings his way. I hope he does recover fully from that.
Yeah, me too.
He's such a genius writer. I'm a big fan of some of the classics that he wrote, for the Rollers over the years. I mean, how can you not like those great Faulkner wood compositions,
Well, he was, Eric's actually he's a very good musician. I mean, as an acoustic guitar picker, it was unbelievable. Maybe something that people didn't get to see or didn't come across via the Rollers, but he used to sit there with an acoustic guitar sometimes and just sit there and go, wow.
You told me in a previous conversation that there's only 2 Rollers you've never met, and that was Derek and Pat McGlynn. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, Ian Mitchell, I met him once. I did meet him once in a pub 40 years ago. So I mean, I can't say that we knew each other well, but.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that you hadn't met either Derek or Pat. That's wild, man. I would have thought your paths would have crossed,
Yeah, you might have thought so, but I don't know. I don't know why I've never met them, but just haven't been in the same place at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I was telling Pat earlier that we were going to be doing this interview, and he listens to the interviews every weekend, so I'm sure he's listening right now.
All right, good. Hiya, Pat.
There you go, Patty says hello. Yeah, man, you have had quite a history, Phil. I was checking out your band, The Stiffs, from 1976. I haven't heard a lot of the material. How would you describe the music of The Stiffs?
Well, I think other people have described it as power pop, stroke punk. You know, we had the punky attitude, but we always had a lot of melody in the songs.
Yeah, because back in the day, I was hearing stuff from the Stiffs here and there, and I was wondering if it was the same band because I come from punk rock, and I thought that
Yeah.
was your band.
Well, I mean, there's also a little bit of confusion because people refer to the band Stiff Little Fingers as the Stiffs often, but we were separate.
Oh, you're not the alternative Ulster people.
No. Although there was an article in a big music magazine a few years ago about Stiff Little Fingers, and they mistakenly used a picture of us.
An alternative photo.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. How long you been a member with Leslie McKeowns Bay City Rollers now?
Well, this will be the 10th year. Yeah, 2011 when I joined, so the 10th year.
Do you have any favorite countries that you like to play with the band?
Oh well, Japan is always great, and we've done Australia a couple of times recently. That's great, and Canada. In fact, we were in Canada last year. We were halfway through a 16-day tour of Canada last year when the COVID thing brought it to a crashing halt.
Wow. So all of a sudden the tour was over, huh?
That was it. Yeah. Middle of 13th of March last year.
Yeah, my last gig myself was the 14th of March. How crazy that everything just came to, like you said, a crashing halt.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's still very unbelievable, actually. Do you hang out with or talk to Leslie much outside of the gigs?
We talk on the phone on a fairly regular basis, but I mean, since last March, we did one show on a holiday camp. I think that was in October. That's the only thing we've been able to do.
Wow, that's got to be that's got to affect a lot of things, man. The wallet, the mental situation, everything. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm busying myself with writing and recording, but you know, sometimes it's hard to motivate. But I try my best to keep positive.
There's no reason we can't go ahead and speak about your new album. You just talked about you keeping busy recording. Do you have a recording studio at your house? Is that where your new album was recorded?
Yeah, pretty much the whole thing was done here. I've got it's nothing space age. I've got a 24-track digital setup. So I play most of the instruments myself, and then swap a few files across the internet with drummers. And for example, Dan Guest, who was one of the Les McKeown Bay City Rollers drummers, he did some of the tracks on my album, but remotely. He sent me the drum files, and I incorporated them into the tracks here.
Wow. Yeah, the album was very well recorded. You can tell that you really took your time. Radio Calling is the album, and I've played a couple of tunes on my radio shows. Are there any songs from that? I'm guessing that the answer is yes. Are there any songs from the album that are autobiographical?
Oh, I don't know. I usually try to disguise whatever I'm thinking in a song and just try to write a story from a third party point of view, or just have a good old grumble. I mean, the title track "Radio Calling SOS" was me really having a dig at the corporate radio stations in this country who play the same stuff every day forever and don't give a lot of good artists a chance.
Yeah, I was in corporate radio for many, many moons, and I wasn't really allowed much freedom. And I've been with community radio for about the last 7 years, and it's one of the last vestiges of free speech and free expression on radio. We are not owned by a corporate entity, so I'm very grateful to have the freedom to interview folks that I really look up to and that millions of others do, like yourself, you know. So I'm very grateful to KSKQ Radio for allowing this.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's it's great that people like yourself who are just enthusiasts of music are doing this. And I've heard a lot of independent radio over the last few months, and it's really encouraging the amount of people out there who are giving new music and underground music a chance.
Yeah, you know, Steve Mack, his show was incredibly popular, and he's community radio as well. You know, it's like we're all in the same international community. I really like Steve. I look up to him a lot. I think his show was incredible, and it's great that community radio is still out there. And I think during the pandemic, one of the better things that has happened is it has kind of brought a resurgence to the old school radio show. You know, the ones that are out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't have all these stations that we've got now. We had the main BBC stations, two stations, BBC Radio 1 and Radio 2, and then the BBC local stations, which tended to be gardening tips and local news stories. And we just had one guy on BBC Radio 1, a guy called John Peel, who was the only guy with the freedom to choose what he played, but they stuck him on at 10 o'clock at night.
A legend.
But then you find out years later that half of the kids in the country were listening to him.
Yeah. So many bands discovered by John Peel. Man, God bless him.
But now you've got people like yourself. There's lots of people who've got that freedom now, which is great.
It is great. It really is, man. If you're sitting home during lockdown, there's nothing better than looking or listening to your favorite rockers talking or doing their music. It's awesome, you know. And lots of people like yourselves doing recordings, making new albums. How long did radio calling take you to start and then finish?
From start to finish, probably 3.5 years, because I wasn't working on it 7 days a week. I wasn't even working towards an album at first, I suppose, because I was so busy touring with not just with Les McKeowns band, but other bands that I work with. So, you know, in between touring, you have to sort of rethink and regain the enthusiasm for recording in a few days spare.
Are you still a member of the original Jukebox Heroes?
Well, I was the last time we gigged, which was January 2020. We did a German tour, and we were scheduled to do on the January that's just passed, but it got to December, and the German COVID situation was no better than the English one, and they pulled the tour.
Wow. I hope things rebound in a way that we can start doing shows again and seeing shows again in the next year or two.
I hope so. I would have never dreamt that we'd be in a situation like this.
Yeah, it is quite shocking. What else do you do with your time besides music? Do you have hobbies or things like that you do on the side?
Well, I've got during the warmer months, I've got a big garden which keeps me busy, and I like to do a bit of walking. But music's my source of income, so I spend a lot of time working on it.
Yeah, good, smart man. Do you write your lyrics or melodies first when you're composing a song, or is it different?
Always a melody. Because I've got to have a melody running through my head for about 8 hours a day. And then that'll spark off some lyrical things. And I always try to have a chorus first, because without a chorus, your song ain't going anywhere.
That's right. Smart thinking.
And then having the chorus give you an indication as to what the song's got to be about.
Right. Did you write? You write? I know you did a great cover that you were telling me a story about. That was the Hoople song that never got used, or something like that.
Yeah, there's a song called "Love Me Always," which was written by Overend Watts of Mott the Hoople. Now, Overend was a good friend of mine. He passed away in 2017. But he had this song which had been written back in 74 or 75, but never used by Mott the Hoople, probably because it didn't suit their style anyway. But it had existed on a demo, and it finally surfaced on some album or other 7 or 8 years ago, the original demo version, and I just fell in love with the song and just wanted to. I just wanted to make it a little bit bigger and more polished and make it reach a wider audience.
Yeah, great job on the album. I really enjoy it. Really good stuff. Radio Calling is the name of the album. I noticed you've been doing quite a bit of radio interviews. I've been checking out your Facebook feed and like, dang, Phil's all over the place.
It's been quite hectic, because apart from writing and recording, I'm the record company, the publicist, the interviewee. So, I never realized how much was involved in trying to sell a record.
That's cool. Is it doing pretty well? I see it's on different charts, have different positions here and there.
Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, I don't think I'm retiring anytime soon, but no, to be serious, when I put the album out, I thought, oh, maybe it's something I can just sell a few copies at gigs. I never really thought that I'd be getting radio stations all around the world playing songs from it and doing interviews with me.
Wow, that's cool. That's a great surprise. Any
but
chance?
Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
My bad. Any chance of you writing an autobiography, Phil?
Well, if I thought there was a market for one, it is something I'd like to do, and I think everyone should do one, even if it's just one copy to leave to their family.
Yeah.
I'd love it if my dad had done an autobiography and left me a copy. Because
yeah,
so many questions I'd like to that I didn't ask him when he was alive, that I now think, I just wish I could ask him that.
Boy, that's a great way of thinking. Everybody should leave an autobiography to their children, or their family. That's a great idea, man.
It should be mandatory.
Yeah, right. Something one of the fans, Karen Lee in Rhode Island, was asking: were you a fan of the Bay City Rollers before you joined up with Eric originally?
Well, that's a funny one, really, because I loved Keep On Dancing, which was their first single in 1971. And back then, as you will probably know, it was a completely different band, apart from Derek and Alan. So I was 9 years old when Keep On Dancing came out, and my mum and my grandmother bought me a copy of it. And then they disappeared for 3 years. So I'd seen this group on the TV, and the shame is that none of the original TV clips of the original lineup exist anymore. They've all been wiped.
No.
So they disappeared for 3 years, and then came back. And I remember thinking, this is not the same guys.
Right.
And yeah, I thought I'd been cheated. But I've got to say that I did secretly like. I love it. I do remember, and Summer Love and Shangalang, Rock and Roll Love Letters are a favourite one of mine. But I probably wouldn't have admitted it to my school friends.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
Well, in England, the Rollers were pretty strictly for the girls, and me being at an all boys school, everybody was walking around with a Deep Purple album under their arm, or a Pink Floyd album.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same here. I assure you, I was a fan since '74, and I couldn't really admit it to my friends because they were into Ted Nugent and Led Zeppelin. and I like
That's
pop music. You know, Rod Stewart. I like Elton John and the Rollers, the Stones.
yeah.
You know, but it was the same thing, man. It was so weird. You couldn't really admit it. But I had all the Rollers records from day one, and I still collect all the stuff, man. Um, how
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
how did you get the gig originally in Eric's band then?
That came through me writing sleeve notes for 70s CD reissues of artists from the British glam rock era. And the
Ah,
guy I was writing for, the company that I was writing for, asked me if I would do sleeve notes for the three Rollers albums that were originally came out after Les left the band.
yeah.
So it was Duncan Forer was doing the vocals on these three albums.
Ah,
So because I was writing the sleeve notes, the guy that employed me at Cherry Red Records, he said, I would like you to deal with Eric Faulkner because Eric wants some input on the sleeve notes. And I said, well, fair enough, that's fine. And then he said, but Eric's also looking to put a new band together, and I've told him that you'll do it. So it was funny how the one thing led to the other. So
wow.
so I talked to Eric on the phone, and he said, I'm putting this new band together. and, and I got I was offered the job. I didn't actually do an audition or anything. I went down to London for one rehearsal, and the following day we flew to Germany for the start of a bunch of gigs.
Interesting. And then you stayed with that band for 3 years, and then how did you end up being full-time in the legendary Bay City Rollers version?
Well, again, that was a weird thing because I was playing a show with my wife does a Debbie Harry tribute. She has a Blondie tribute band.
I heard about that.
And I play in that band. And she was booked on a festival in England immediately before Les McKeowns Rollers. So we played, then we got to get the gear off the stage, and then Les's band came on. And in that crossover period, I got to talking to a couple of them and explained that I played in Eric's band. And a couple of weeks later, one of the guys, Simon Mulvey, who was the musical director of the band, he got in touch with me and asked me if I'd be interested in joining Les's band. So it's a series of strange coincidences, really.
Wow. One thing led to another, huh?
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the music world, living or dead, that if you could work with, that you would like to work with?
Oh, I think I'd like to go and have a thrash with Bruce Springsteen. Springsteen, I don't know what I just called him.
Brute, the boss.
Yeah, just like that. I mean, when you see the guy live, he's just this crescendo of enthusiasm and energy, and I like to see that, and I would like to be part of it.
Yeah, he's got a hell of a following too.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you still working with Phil? Let's see here. I got my notes here turned around. Phil Wright's version of Paper Lace. Are you still working with those guys?
Well, yeah. Again, it's all been put on hold, but they've just released a new single track called Ragamuffin Man, which is a new version of an old song by Manfred Mann, and I think that's just come out this week.
Wow.
So that's yeah. I mean, it's a bit awkward because they've got to call it original 70s Paper Lace because there's another band who owns the name but doesn't contain any original members.
Wow.
So it's a bit awkward when you know they've got two members of the original band, including the lead singer, and yet they're not allowed to use their own name.
It is a trip, the music industry. I tell you, I tell people all the time, if you don't know, boy, it's like a horror story sometimes behind the scenes, man. Whew.
Absolutely.
You
If you
know,
see this with a lot of the 70s bands, is there are two factions who are usually at war with one another.
yes, there are very many. What was it like playing on the Bay City Rollers reunion tour with Alan and Les and Woody? I know there was good points, and I heard that there was some meltdowns and things. What was that experience like for you, though?
But well, for me, it was fabulous because I just remember standing backstage before the first show at the Barrowlands in Glasgow, and the excitement that you could feel from the audience was electric, and
Wow.
it was just great to feel that electricity that obviously they had experienced in the 70s, but I'd never experienced it before.
Wow.
I mean, we played some big shows, but that was a little bit special.
Wow, that would be amazing. I bet that was one to remember for sure. Long live Alan too. Did you get along with Alan very well?
Oh, Alan, he was a lovely fella. Yeah, he was a really nice, easygoing guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a pleasure working and talking to you today. I want to make sure that people know how to find your album, Phil. What's the best way to people if they would like to get Radio Calling? What's the best way for them to get it?
Well, it's available on all those digital platforms, the iTunes and the Spotify's and the whatever, Deezer, Doozer. But I also did a CD reissue, which it's a little bit harder to find unless you track me down on social media, because that's where I advertise that.
Which is not too hard to do. You're pretty visual out there, and you're pretty approachable, and you're one of the nicer guys I've encountered. That's not doesn't seem to be hung up on a lot of weird ego trips. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I won't be too hard to find. It's the spelling that usually sends people to the wrong place.
Yeah, I made the mistake of spelling your name like Jimi Hendrix, and I'm like, oh, that's not it. I got schooled. One of your fans called me out real quick.
Yeah. Well, I've had Kendricks and Hendrix, like the Jimmy spelling. It's Hendriks, Hendriks.
Hey, one more question, Phil. Will the legendary Bay City Rollers be doing any gigs in the States if things get safe, or do you have any clue?
I don't know. I haven't specifically heard it mentioned, but I know Les is working on stuff constantly. He's eager to get back on the road, and he's got quite a lot of stuff lined up for later in the year. But I haven't heard him specifically mention the States.
Yeah, a lot of people were asking. I'm like, I have no idea, so I thought I would at least ask you.
Yeah, well, the fact that I haven't heard it mentioned doesn't mean it's not under consideration. So, he doesn't run everything by me.
Yeah, well, I understand. Well, Radio Calling is the new album. You're listening to a chat with Phil Hendriks, who is performing with the legendary Bay City Rollers. He's got his own solo material. He's with the band Paper Lace, the original Jukebox Heroes, and of course was with the Stiffs back in the 70s. Such a great legacy, man. Thanks for making the time for being on the show, my friend, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Well, thank you, Derek. It's been a pleasure. Much appreciated.
Yeah, you too. And I'll be looking forward to any other music you release down the road. And we'll keep playing cuts from your album on the Almighty Church of Rock radio show.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You bet. Take care, Phil.
All the best, Derek. Cheers.
Hey, thank you.